The Chronicles of Prydain by Lloyd Alexander. Book 5. The High King. Chapter 5. The Watcher. Although Fluid Flam quickly led Eilonwy, King Rune, and Glue to Avern Harbor, their return from the ship was less rapid. First, the King of Mona managed, against all likelihood, to tumble over his horse's neck when the dappled gray halted to drink at the riverbank. The ducking thoroughly soaked the unlucky king, but did not dampen his spirits. However, Rune's sword belt had come undone, and the blade had sunk in the shallows. Rune, being unable to fish it out again, because he had also got himself tangled in the steed's harness, Fluider was obliged to plunge into the river for the weapon. Glue now protested bitterly against riding behind the sopping bard.
"Walk then, little weasel!"
cried Fluider, shivering and beating his arms against his sides.
"By my choice, in the opposite direction!"
Glue only sniffed haughtily and refused to budge. Eilonwy stamped her foot with impatience.
"Will you make haste, all of you? We came to look after Lord Gwydion, and we can hardly look after ourselves."
The former giant consented to ride behind the princess on Lalugar, and they set off once more. Lion, however, had suddenly taken it into her head to be playful. She lunged forward on her huge padded paws and spun joyfully about while the desperate bard clung to her tawny neck. It was all Fluider could do to keep Lion from rolling onto her back with himself astride her.
"She seldom does this!"
shouted the breathless bard, while Lion, with great leaps, circled the companions.
"She's really been quite well behaved. No use scolding her. Makes no difference. Oh!"
At last, Fluider was forced, with difficulty, to unsling his harp and pluck out a melody until Lion grew calm again. Soon after midday, the bard heard the faint, distant notes of Taran's horn.
"They're worried over us,"
Fluider said.
"I hope we shall soon rejoin them."
The companions pressed on as quickly as they could, but the distance between the two bands increased rather than dwindled, and at nightfall they wearily halted and slept. A fresh morning start brought them, according to Fluider's reckoning, less than half a day behind the others. King Rune, more than ever eager to reach Caer-Codarn, urged all speed from the dappled gray, but the mare's pace was much slower than Lion's and Lalugar's. Eilonwy and Fluider continually had to rein in their mounts. Midway through the afternoon, King Rune gave a glad cry. Caer-Codarn lay only a little distance off. They saw Smite's crimson banner clearly beyond the trees. The companions were about to hasten onward, but Eilonwy frowned and looked once more at the fluttering standard.
"How odd," the princess remarked. "I see King Smite's jolly old bear, but Gwydion surely must be there by now, and I don't see the banner of the House of Dawn. Queen Teleria taught me it is courtesy for a cantrip noble to fly the golden sunburst of dawn when one of the royal house visits him."
"True enough in ordinary circumstances,"
agreed Fluider.
"But I doubt, at this point, that Gwydion wants anyone to know where he is. He's told Smite to put aside the formalities. A most sensible precaution."
"Yes, of course," Eilonwy replied. I shouldn't have thought of that. How clever of you, Fluider."
The bard beamed happily.
"Experience, princess, long experience, but never fear, such wisdom will come to you in time."
"Even so,"
Eilonwy said as they rode farther.
"It's curious the gates are closed. Knowing King Smite, you might suppose they'd be flung open and an honor guard waiting for us, with King Smite himself at their lead."
Fluider waved the girl's remark aside.
"Not a bit of it. Lord Gwydion follows a path of danger, not a round of festivals. I understand how such things are done. I've been on 1,000 secret missions. Perhaps one or two,"
he added hastily.
"I fully expected Caer-Codarn would be buckled, bolted, and shut tight as an oyster."
"Yes," Eilonwy said. "I'm sure you know more about such things than I."
She hesitated, straining her eyes to take in the castle, which the companions were now rapidly approaching.
"But King Smite isn't at war with his neighbors, as far as I've heard. 2 watchmen on the walls would be more than enough. Does he need a whole party of bowmen?"
Naturally, replied Fluider, to protect Lord Gwydion.
But if no one is to know Gwydian's there, Eilonwy persisted.
Great villain!
Cried the bard, reining up Lion.
Now you make my head spin. Are you trying to say Gwydion's not at Caer Cadarn? If he's not, we shall soon find out. And if he is, we shall find that out as well.
Fluider scratched his spiky yellow head.
But if he's not, then why not? What could have happened? And if he is, then there's nothing to worry about. Yet if he isn't, no, drat and blast, you've turned me queasy. I don't understand.
I don't understand either, Eilonwy answered. All I know, and I don't even know it, is that, well, I can't explain. I see the castle all crooked-wise. No, not see, taste. No, well, no matter, she burst out. I've come all over chills and creeps, and I don't like it. You've had experience, I don't doubt, but my ancestors were enchantresses, every one, and so should I have been if I hadn't chosen to be a young lady.
Enchantments,
the bard muttered uncomfortably.
Stay away from them. Don't meddle. It's also been my experience. They never turn out well.
I see, put in Rune. If the princess feels there's something amiss, I'll be glad to ride ahead and find out. I shall frankly rap on the gates and demand to know.
Nonsense, replied Fluider. I'm quite sure all is well.
A harp string broke and twanged loudly. The bard cleared his throat.
No, I'm not sure at all. Oh, bother it. The girl has put an idea in my head and I can't shake it out. One way, everything looks all right. The other way, it looks all wrong. Just to ease your mind. My mind? That is, Fluider told the princess. I shall be the one to find out. As a wandering bard, I can go and come as I please. If anything's wrong, none will suspect me. If not, there's no harm done. Stay here. I'll be back directly. We shall laugh over this at King Smite's table, he added without great assurance.
The bard dismounted, considering it wiser not to draw attention by riding Lion.
And you try no mischief, he warned Glue. I hate to let you out of my sight, but Lion will keep an eye on you. Hers are sharper than mine. So are her teeth.
On foot, the bard made his way to the castle. After a while, Eilonwy saw the gate swing open and Fluider disappear within. Then all was silent. By nightfall, the girl had grown seriously alarmed, for there had been no further sign from the bard. The companions had concealed themselves on a thicket, awaiting Fluider's return. But now Eilonwy rose and anxiously faced the castle. It is all wrong, she cried, taking an impatient stride forward. King Rune drew her back. Perhaps not, he said. Why, he'd have come back immediately to warn us if there was. No doubt Smite's giving him supper, or, Rune loosened his sword in its sheath. I'll go see. No, you shall not, Eilonwy cried. I should have gone in the first place, though I should have known better than to let myself be put off by anyone. Rune, however, insisted. Eilonwy refused. The heated, although whispered, dispute was followed and was interrupted by the sudden arrival of the bard himself. Breathless and gasping, he stumbled into the thicket.
It's Meg! He has them all!
Fluider's voice was pale as his face in the moonlight.
Caught! Trapped!
Eilonwy and Rune listened aghast at what Fluider had learned.
The warriors themselves don't know who the prisoners are, only that there are 4 with Smite locked up for treachery. Treachery indeed! They've been made to swallow some kind of tale. The game goes deeper than that. What it is, I couldn't discover. I think the guards had orders to lay hold of everybody entering the castle. Luckily, those orders didn't seem to apply to wandering bards. It's so usual for a bard to drift in and sing for his supper that the warriors never gave it a second thought, though they did keep an eye on me and wouldn't let me near Smite's great hall or the larder where they put the prisoners. But I caught a glimpse of Mag. Oh, this sneering, smirking spider! If only I could have run him through then and there. The warriors kept me harping until I thought my fingers would drop off.
he hurriedly concluded.
Otherwise, I should have been back long ago. I didn't dare stop, or they'd have smelled a rat. And there's our rat to be smelled,
he cried furiously.
How shall we rescue them? Eilonwy demanded. I don't care why they're locked up. Ask later. First, get them out.
We can't,
Fluider answered in despair.
Impossible. Not with only 4 of us. And that's 4 counting Glue, who can't be counted at all.
Glue snorted. Usually the little man took no interest in anything not bearing directly on himself. Now his face was agitated.
When I was a giant, I could have torn the walls down.
Bother when you were a giant, snapped Fluider. You're not one now. Our only hope is to go farther into the Cantrev, tell one of the Cantrev lords what's happened, and have him rally an attack force.
It will take too long, cried Eilonwy. Oh, do be quiet and let me think.
The girl strode again to the clearing and turned her eyes defiantly toward the castle, which flung its own dark defiance against her. Her mind raced, but with no clear path. With half a sob and half a cry of anger, she was about to turn away. A movement against a nearby tree caught her glance. She halted a moment. Not daring to turn her head, from a corner of her eye she grew aware of a strange, humped shadow motionless now. As if to continue on her path, she walked seemingly in the direction of Fluider and Rune, but edged little by little toward the tree. Suddenly, quick as lion, she leaped upon the humped figure. Part of it went rolling in one direction, and the rest of it set up a muffled shrieking. Eilonwy pummeled, kicked, and scratched. Fluider and King Rune were at her side in an instant. The bard seized one end of the flailing shape, King Rune the other. Eilonwy drew back and quickly took the bauble from her cloak. As she cupped it in her hand, the sphere began to glow. She held it closer to the struggling form. Her jaw dropped. The golden beams shone on a pale, wrinkled face with a long, drooping nose and mournful mouth. Wild wisps of cobweb-like hair floated above a pair of eyes that blinked wretchedly and tearfully.
Gwaistel! Eilonwy cried. Gwaistel of the fair folk!
The bard loosened his grip. Gwaistel sat up, rubbed his skinny arms, then climbed to his feet and pulled his cloak defensively about him.
How nice to see you again, he mumbled. But a pleasure, believe me. But I've thought of you often. Goodbye. Now I really must be on my way. Help us, Eilonwy pleaded. Gwaistel, we beg you. Our companions are prisoned in Smite's castle.
Gwaistel clapped his hands to his head. His face puckered miserably.
Please, he moaned. Don't shout. I'm not well. I'm not up to being shouted at this evening. Would you mind not shining that light in my eyes? No, it's really too much. But it's more than enough to be pulled down and sat on without people picking you up and bellowing and half blinding you. But as I was saying, yes, it's been delightful running into you. Of course, I'll be glad to help. But perhaps another time when we're not feeling so upset. Gwaistel, don't you understand? Eilonwy cried. Have you been listening to me at all? Another time, you must help us now. Gwydian's sword is stolen. Drinwyn is gone. Arryn has it. Don't you see what that means? This is the most terrible thing that could ever happen. How can Gwydian get the sword back if he's locked up with his own life in danger? And Taran, and Call and Gurgi. Some days are like that, Gwaistel sighed. And what's to be done about it? Nothing, alas. But hope things will brighten, which they very likely won't. But there you are, it's all you can do. But yes, I know Drinwyn is stolen, a sad misfortune, a disheartening state of affairs.
You already know,
exclaimed the bard.
Great Bellin, speak up. Where is it?
No idea, whatever.
Gwaistel gasped in such desperation that Eilonwy believed the melancholy creature indeed spoke the truth.
But that's the least of my concerns. What's happening around a Newven?
He shuddered and patted his pale forehead with a trembling hand.
But the huntsmen are gathering. The Cauldron Born have come out, whole troops of them. But I've never seen so many Cauldron Born all together in my life. But it's enough to make a decent person take to his bed. But that's not the half of it.
Gweistel choked.
But some of the cantrip lords are rallying their battle hosts, and their war leaders hold council in a Newland. The place is thick with warriors inside and outside, wherever you look. But I was even afraid they'd discover my tunnels and spy holes. These days, I'm the fair folks' only watcher close to a Newland. More's the pity, for the work piles up so. Believe me,
Gweistel hurried on.
but your friends are better off where they are, much safer. No matter what's being done to them, it can't be worse than stumbling into that hornet's nest. But if by chance you do see them again, give them all my fondest greetings. But I'm sorry, terribly sorry, I can't stay longer. But I'm on my way to the realm of the fair folk. King Idleg should learn of these matters without delay.
If King Idleg learns you wouldn't help us, Eilonwy indignantly burst out. You'll wish you'd never left your waypost.
But it's a long, hard journey.
Gweistel sighed and shook his cobwebby head, completely ignoring Eilonwy's remark.
But I shall have to go above ground every step. Idleg wants to know all that's stirring along the way. But I'm not up to journey, not in my condition, not in this weather, least of all. Summer would have been much more agreeable, but there's nothing to be done about it. Goodbye, farewell, always a pleasure.
Gweistel stopped to pick up a bundle almost as large as himself. Eilonwy clutched him by the arm. Oh, no, you don't, she cried. You'll warn King Idleg after we free our companions. Don't try to deceive me, Gweistel of the fair folk. You're cleverer than you care to let on. But if you won't give us your help, I know how to get it. I'll squeeze it out of you. The girl made a movement to seize the creature about his neck. Gweistel made a heart-rending sob and feebly endeavored to defend himself.
No squeezing, no, please. But I couldn't face up to it, not now. Goodbye, really. This is hardly the moment.
Fluider, meanwhile, was staring curiously at the bundle. The large, lumpy pack had rolled near a bush when Eilonwy had first set upon Gweistel, and it lay partly undone on the ground.
Great villain!
Murmured the bard.
What a tangle of oddments! Worse than a snail with his household on his back.
But it's nothing at all,
Gweistel said hurriedly.
But a few little comforts to ease the journey.
We might do better squeezing this pack instead of squeezing Gweistel's neck,
remarked Fluider, who had dropped to his knees and had begun to rummage through the bundle.
There may be something here more useful than Gweistel himself.
But take whatever you please,
Gweistel urged as Eilonwy turned the bauble's glow upon the heap.
Have it all if you like. It makes no difference. But I shall manage without it, painfully, but I shall manage.
King Rune knelt beside the bard, who thus far had pulled out a few mended sheepskin-lined jackets and several ragged cloaks. The amazing! Rune cried. Here's a bird's nest!
Yes,
Gweistel sighed.
Take it. It's something I've been saving. You never know when the need for one might arise, but it's yours now.
No, thank you,
murmured the bard.
I shouldn't want to deprive you.
Their hasty search next revealed water flasks, both empty and full, a walking staff in jointed sections, allowing it to be folded up, a cushion with an extra bag of feathers, 2 lengths of rope, some fishing lines and large hooks, 2 tents, a number of iron wedges, and a crooked iron bar, a wide piece of soft leather, which, as Gweistel reluctantly explained, could be set about a willow frame to serve as a small boat. Several large bunches of dried vegetables and herbs, and numerous bags of lichens in all colors.
But for my condition,
Gweistel mumbled, indicating the latter.
The dampness and clamminess around a new one is dreadful. Please don't help at all, but they're better than nothing. However, you're welcome.
The bard shook his head in despair.
Useless rubbish! We might borrow the ropes and fish hooks, but for whatever good they may do us.
Gweistel! Eilonwy cried angrily. All your tents and boats and walking staves won't answer. Oh, I could squeeze you anyway, for I'm out of patience with you. Be gone. Yes, goodbye indeed. Gweistel, heaving huge sighs of relief, rapidly began packing his bundle. As he hoisted it to his shoulder, from his cloak fell a small sack, which he tried desperately to recover. I say, what's this? Asked Rune, who had already gathered up the bag and was about to hand it to the agitated creature.
Eggs,
mumbled Gweistel. Luckily they weren't smashed when you took your tumble, said Rune cheerfully. Perhaps we'd better have a look. he added, untying the string around the mouth of the bag.
Eggs?
Said Fluider, brightening somewhat.
I wouldn't mind eating 1 or 2 of them. I've had no food since midday. Those warriors kept me harping, but they took no pains to feed me. Come, old fellow, I'm starved enough to crack one now and swallow it raw.
No, no,
Squealed Gweistel, snatching for the bag.
don't do it. They're not eggs at all. They see, they surely look like it,
Remarked Rune, peering into the sack.
If they aren't, what are they?
Gweistel choked, then went into a fit of violent coughing and sighed before he answered.
Smoke,
He gasped.